Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Conversations with Rosalind. We are here this week for another Hump Day Insight to just give you a little bit to get you over and through this Wednesday onto the weekend. And so, as you know, I'm a life coach, and I'm just here to help us all get through by answering questions that you place to me that matter to you in terms of your personal life and your career. And so this week's question kind of came as, how do I deal with unconscious bias in the workplace? And I thought that that was really good and important, because sometimes that has a lot to do with how we feel about going to work and working with others, and how is it affecting our growth and promotion in that, and how do we see our environment, our working environment. And so I wanted to address that kind of like from what I've experienced and what I've learned, both as support staff and as it has come in leadership, right? So the first thing I want to say is that unconscious bias, in a way, the word unconscious automatically kind of, for me, warrants some grace, right? It warrants that I'm going to need to have some open understanding about what's actually happening with this bias, right? So the first thing that I want to do is try to get an understanding of, where is this bias coming from? Why is this bias? Because the unconscious part is the part that says, okay, let's give it a minute. Let's see what is actually happening, right? So what we have to do then is learn to accept people where they are, right? I see you there, Rochelle, and hi to you too. So I want to talk about, how do you accept people where they are when you feel like that they're being biased against you? Keep in mind that the more you're aware of a person's character or where they come from, it makes it easier to accept them where they are. It doesn't mean you have to agree with them. Don't get those two things twisted. I can accept you and not agree with you. But if I accept you, what that does is it helps me to keep those walls down so that we can then open up and understand each other's perspectives better. So you want to say, take that person where they are in the moment, what their understanding is, how they're seeing, what their perspective is, and then let's move forward to the next process of trying to get some unilateral understanding. And the way that I look at that is that I say, let me give you a story, an example, right? So you've got this wealthy man that has a beautiful wife, and she's the home manager, right? She makes sure that the children are well taken care of, their schooling is well, the house is well maintained, everything is taken care of. You come home to a castle, food is ready, all of those things, which we know in itself, managing a home is a lot. So every day he comes home, every day, and he walks in the door. Hi, sweetheart, how are you? And by the time she can begin to get anything out of her mouth, then he begins in with his day. Hasn't given a hug, a kiss, or anything. He just goes in to unload his feelings about his day. And so this goes on. And at some point she says, you know what? I'm done. I'm tired. I'm leaving. I'm not taking this anymore. And he is like, what? Why? What is happening? What is wrong with her? And he goes to his friends and he says, what is going on with her? I give her everything. And this is the unconscious part, right? This is the part that's unconscious that he doesn't realize, because what I'll tell you is that most people don't understand when you come to say, this isn't right, because what they're thinking when they feel backed up against a wall, that you're saying that something isn't right, they begin to reflect back on everything that they've done. I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. How can they say this? Because most people aren't always willing to accept those things that need to be looked at from another person's perspective. And when you come to them in a certain way, like, you don't do this, or you're biased against me, you're not giving me the opportunity, or you're not looking at me for what I want or what I need, then they block that off, because they'll say, no, I'm giving everything. So you have to open the door to that perspective. So what he doesn't understand, the unconscious part, is that he doesn't understand that the part that's important to her is that she wants a few minutes to unload as well. She'd like a hug or a kiss or feeling some form of appreciation, because stereotypically she's not appreciated as working, because she is a home manager. And so it's important to her to receive that from him. But when he doesn't give that, while it may seem small, it is accumulating resentment. It's accumulating these things that say, he thinks he's so important. It is not saying that I'm not saying thank you and I appreciate everything that's going on and everything that you're doing, and that I'm so grateful that you bring home the bread, so to speak, to make sure that everything is well. What it is saying is that there are some things that need to be adjusted, need to be incorporated, need to be changed. And if he blocks off that, then that's where we have the problem. But if he then begins to understand that it's unconsciously that he's doing these things and that he doesn't mean any harm, well, then there where you see that there's room to open up so that I can see your perspective. But what's important is that she too has to be able to go to him and say, I want you to understand that I appreciate all of these things, and give him his honor for those things that are important to him. As you then, that's the grace, right, that we talked about earlier. Unconscious bias warrants grace so that it can open up the conversation. And so now it's like, I see this, and I see that you do these things, and I see that you do that, but you seem to miss and not understand the things that I find important. And let me explain to you what they are and why they're important to me and what they mean to me. And I'd like for you to be able to incorporate that. And at this point, he then, instead of building up this wall that he blocks back and goes, what's wrong with her? I give her everything. I do everything. I'm this, this, and that. He can then open up and see his perspective, her perspective. And where that becomes important is that now he has something to think about, because you gotta give people room to learn. Because when you're on a learning curve of understanding different perspectives and different ways that things are, you gotta give people some room so that they can absorb it, because they're needing to incorporate some change, right? They're needing to incorporate that there is something else that needs to happen. So now that she's given him some room and she just laid out there exactly what needs to happen while she's also acknowledging, then he can understand where his bias comes in, and he may be able to save her leaving, right? Because then now the perspective is unilateral. She understands where he comes from because she's given him room to be able to express himself. He understands where she's coming from because it just seems to be room to understand what she's saying. So now, If that makes sense to you, let's move that example into the workplace, which is what your question was how do I deal with bias in the workplace? So just remember the things that I said about that unconscious is the key. Unconscious bias is going to require some what did I just say? It's going to require some grace. And so now when we take that scenario of appreciating and understanding to keep the walls from going up, to open up the dialogue, and then giving some space for it to absorb, how does that work in the workplace? Let's say we've got two, this has happened to me, and I can explain it from that perspective, right? Let's say we've got two employees on the very same level. We've got a supervisor that is given, this steady delegates task, and you've got one employee who says, you know what? My supervisor is always giving the task to him that shows that he's a front runner, a leader, and when it comes time to look at people for promotion, I'm not even going to be looked at because the task I'm giving kind of seem like grunt work. They don't seem leadership-like. And so, what is happening? Is he doing this to me on purpose because he likes this other guy better or what? Or she likes this other person better? Whichever way it goes, I don't want to seem he or she about this. But it comes off to you, and then you have these resentments. The same way in the scenario with the home manager and the husband. And so you start having these resentments. Well, the things that we look at is that we say, okay, how do I break this wall down? Remember, again, we accept people where they are for what we understand where they are. So what happens then is that we then go to that supervisor and we then begin to talk to him and say, you know what? I am happy that I'm happy that you are such a great supervisor in so many facets, and you acknowledge to them what it is that you find that's good about them. And then you tell them what you've noticed and what you feel and what that means to you. I noticed that you give him all of the leadership type of tasks, and you give me these other tasks, and what they feel like to me are tasks that are not uplifting my abilities to be in leadership. And I feel like that when it comes around and we're looking at promotions or something, that he will be looked at more favorably because he will then have the experience. And if those things were balanced out, then I would feel much more as if I'm able to put my abilities on the forefront of what I'm able to do, and we'd have a more equal playing field. Well, what you just did is that you gave him some information to take a look at himself, and you then ask him or her or whatever, why? I just want to know, what is it that that invites you to give him or her more of the leadership roles? You will learn something about his insight. And that's when you're able to put your foot forward, and then you expressly, because remember, accepting a person for where they are and where their perspective is and what they understand doesn't mean that you agree with it. But not coming at them, as opposed to acknowledging where they are and acknowledging that helps you to keep that wall from building. Because a person, I'm telling you, we all know and we all do it, will build that wall quick, and then the conversation is shut down. So when I'm looking and I'm going, hey, so tell me, I'm interested to know, why do you put them in all of the leadership tasks? So once you have that understanding and you give yours, don't get upset if the dynamic doesn't change right away. What you've just learned is how to feed that mind, feed that perspective, keep that door and that conversation open, because I guarantee you that when you feed person information that's different from their perspective, when they have time and when they're not in the presence of others, it will resonate with them. They'll think about it. They'll think and they'll say, huh, I didn't know that he felt that way. I didn't know that she felt like that I was, being unfair to her. I just thought that because she had, a family and, had so many other things on her, that she didn't, want to have all these things. I didn't know that she felt like I was holding her back from future promotions. Huh. Maybe I need to give her a chance and see. Because that's not him giving any handouts. That's him then opening up his perspective. Because that bias that he had, it was unconscious bias. And once you were able to understand and accept where he was and what his perspective was at that moment, you then again opened the door for unilateral conversation, unilateral understanding, to widen those perspectives, to see beyond what it is that you are thinking and you're seeing. And so that's kind of what I wanted to share with you today about, looking at how do you deal with unconscious bias. It's very different from conscious bias. That's another conversation. But you have to take a person to understand, this is where they are. But it's important to find out why. And then it's important to find out, to make sure that they understand what's important to you. And you need to be able to do that in a way that doesn't make them build that wall. So I challenge you to be able to take that in and apply it to your home, apply it to your workplace, as we talked about in the earlier scenario, as we talk about this one. And let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know how you think about that. Be sure to like, comment, share, and whatever your thoughts are, whatever your questions are. And, I hope that this helps you get over your hump day just a little bit insight, because I want you to know that the more that you're aware, the more that you're in control of your thoughts, the more that you're in control of your feelings, the more that you're in control of the way you do all the things in your life, and it helps you inch forward a little bit better in peace and be able to better create that life of vibrancy. And so, like it, share it, comment on it. Give me a question in my inbox. And don't forget that if you are in need of some coaching, you're in need of a place that you want to be, that you want to get to another place, and I'm not quite sure how to get there, and that you need some help with that and getting over that hump, and you're willing to take a look at possibly working with me as your coach, then feel free to let me know. You can also go to my site, vivifyu.com, get my free offer book. Let's begin a conversation. I'm open for individuals, teams, groups, and I'd love to share with you. I'd love to help you get to that next place in your life, and I look forward to seeing you next week. So happy hump day. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great one. Bye.